What's the best way to get a job? Get busted and do community service, of course. This is the story about how I became a plumber, and it's coming up right now. I ended up getting sentenced to 30 days of community service. I show up for work there, and it's at the streets and sanitation department. And I'm like, oh, these guys make like $22 an hour, which at the time was good money, you know. And I'm like, if I work good, maybe somebody from the streets and sanitation will see me and be like, you know, offer me a job. Hey, you're a good worker. Can I, you know, give you a job? Which was total fantasy that would probably not going to happen, right? But I was working. I was pushing that broom, sweeping good, you know, and doing this and that. And we had like the sheriff's trailers and trucks and stuff, and we had to wash those, and it looked like it had never been washed, you know, at all. And I got it like brand new. I got all the stains out. I really put a lot of elbow grease. I was wax on and wax off, and you know, I got it looking good. I never did get a job from streets and sanitation, but I did meet a guy there, and he says, hey, you know, I'm a plumber and I work for a plumbing company. My boss is looking for a guy, and man, you work hard. Like, you're a good worker. I'm going to, like, if you are looking for a job, you want a job, I'll recommend you to my boss and he'll hire you. He's looking for somebody. I'm like, yeah, that would be great. A plumber. Look, they make good money, you know? So like, I'll be a plumber. Yeah. I don't know how to do it, but if it can start from scratch, you know, I'll do it. I think I was cleaning carpets or something like that at the time. He's like, all right, I'll set up an interview, you know, and talked to him the next day. He says, yeah, my boss said be there tomorrow at like, you know, 7 a.m. I'm like, 7 a.m.? He's like, yeah, 7 a.m. Be there. And then I showed up there. We negotiated an hourly rate, and he started me. And then I became a plumber from that. I liked it. And I was doing plumbing, and I learned plumbing. And the problem is that it was a union shop, but they had me working as a non-union guy. They didn't want me to get into the union because they didn't want to have to pay the union dues and all that stuff. So my boss told me, if ever like a union BA, business administrator, or whatever they call it, you know, comes onto a construction site, you should just grab a broom and pretend you're just sweeping or picking up. You're the shop boy, because we don't want you getting in. He's like, we don't want you getting in trouble. I'm like, oh, okay. So I did. Well, I didn't realize if I had been caught doing plumbing, they would have organized me into the union, and I could have started off as like a third-year apprentice. Instead, I had to try to get myself into the union, and it took me like 3 or 4 years like 2 years. I think 2 years of applying. Every time there was application time, which is a couple times a year, I would apply. And finally I got in, and, you know, my boss didn't like that really, because that meant he had to pay more, you know, dues and stuff to the union. But I was glad I got in, and I went through the whole apprenticeship. It was 5-year apprenticeship. I went through the whole thing. I could have already had, you know, a few years under my belt, you know, so I was kind of sore about that at my boss. I'm going to tell you some crazy stories that happened to me while I was a plumber. And they get worse as I go, so you'll want to stick to the end. We were doing the floor drains around a swimming pool on the roof of a high-rise. And there's condos underneath. And there was a big storm coming, and we weren't done. So the pipe was stubbed up, but it wasn't sealed around, and all the rainwater was going to be a huge, you know, storm. It had already started to rain. It was going to come in there and trash all these $1 million condos underneath. So I'm working super hard to try to get it all done, and it's hard to pour the lead joints, you know, in the rain. And I just, you know, did as best as I could, and my jeans got ripped, and I just, you know, I did probably about, you know, 2 days worth of work in like, you know, 4 hours or something like that, just to get this done before the end of the day. And I stayed late working there and whatever. I remember the contractor guy called my boss, and he said, your guy, I don't know where you got him. He's a good worker. He works hard. Like, he works just as good or harder than the Mexican laborers that I got. And I tell you what, this isn't a racial thing. That was the best compliment I ever had. He told me I worked just as hard as these Mexican laborers. I mean, that's a compliment to me. That's it's a compliment to them. I'm not saying anything, right? I mean, I took that as a wonderful compliment. So I was pretty proud of that. And actually he gave me a little bit of raise, for that. So that was worth it. I liked it, but I hated it. I did a lot of new construction and high rises and stuff like that. I did a lot of the harder stuff like, cast iron pipes, they're heavy, not like in the suburbs where they're using PVC and stuff like that, plastic pipes. But I also had a lot of rough, hard days that I didn't like too, where I had to rod something and, you pull the rod out and it's got like a used tampon on it. It whacks you in the face, or a rubber. I've gotten hit in the face with rubbers and stuff. I've gotten it in my mouth. It's horrible. I had to keep Listerine in the van in case I got something nasty in my mouth. Oh, oof, I cringe at this story, but I'll tell you because you'll probably get a kick out of it. So I was doing a job at like 2900 North Broadway, which is right in the middle of Boys Town, which is a gay neighborhood on the north side of Chicago. And the store that I was doing the work in was for a company called, I don't know if I should say the name, but the name of the company owns all the adult bookshops, all the adult porn stores in Chicago. All right. And this was the one in the gay neighborhood. So if you go down in the basement, they have they're jack-off booths. That's what they are. They're basically like a little closet. You put the quarter in, the movie comes on, you do your thing, and you leave. And by city ordinance, they have to mop those floors every 30 minutes because of all the contaminant that gets on the floor. And this is in Boys Town, so it's not just regular porn, it's gay porn that's playing. And sometimes it's, more than one guy that goes in the booth together. And, so they make a mess and you have to mop that up. Not me, the owner of the store, And then the dirty jizz water, they pour it into the slop sink and it goes down into the ejector pit. And then a pump pumps it up and out into the sewer. Sometimes that pump goes bad and I got to go and replace the pump. Not a problem. You just undo the union, take off the pipe, put the pipe on the new pump, drop it back down, plug it in, and and put the union back in. So what we do is, so that the cord doesn't fall into the dirty jizz water, we take that cord and we loop it around the conduit and then plug it in. Well, I did that before I reconnected the pipe. Whoosh, like a fountain, all this jizz water went all over me. It's in got in my mouth, and it was horrible. And I was like, it's all over me. It's in my eyes. I went running down the street. Luckily, there was a Walgreens like a block away, and I got some Listerine. I'm like, horrible, horrible, horrible. So, needless to say, I didn't, want that to be my life's career, just being a plumber. One time we were doing a plumbing job in a high rise, and it was Friday, and we packed everything up into the job box, which is basically a big metal container. And we put all our tools in there, and we can lock it up. That way we don't have to, carry our tools back and forth from the truck and stuff. We can just, if it's a job we're going to be on for a while, we just leave tools at the job and lock it up at night. So we did that, and we came back Monday morning, refreshed and ready for another week of work. Well, we open up the job box, and my partner says, "Hey, man, it really reeks like propane in here." We could smell it as soon as we walked into the it was condos that were doing in a high rise. So as soon as we walked into the condo unit that we had our job box in, we could smell it. He opened up the lid. I said, "No, put the lid back down. It's coming from in there." Now, propane is much heavier than, air and oxygen. So it stayed in, like it weighed itself down and stayed in the job box. So he's trying to think, how do we get it out? I'm like, well, we can open up some windows, whatever. I'm just trying to think, blow a fan, whatever. He says, before I can even say anything, like open a window or a fan or something, he already starts walking over to it. He's got his striker and his this little hand torch. And he says, "Don't worry, I'll get it." And I'm like, I felt like I was in slow motion. I'm like, "No, don't do it." And like, I didn't get there in time. He lights it, he puts the torch down into the gang box that was full of propane gas, and a huge explosion. I'm surprised it didn't blow up the building, but it didn't. It just blew up the condo that we were in, and it blew him into me. I was behind him because I was chasing after him, and we went up. There were high ceilings too. The ceilings were like 12-foot or 14-foot ceilings. It blew me up into the ceiling and across the ceiling, like you would see in like the Exorcist movie or something. And in fact, actually, there was a nail sticking out, and I scraped my back up. And then we fell to the ground, and it must have shook the building, because the building engineers, this was like on the 15th floor, the building engineers all the way down in the basement of the building come running up. We heard a huge boom down in the boiler room. My partner, his hair's all singed off and his eyebrows are singed. His beard is all, he had a longer beard, but it was all singed up like this. And he's just standing there holding the torch in one hand, the striker in the other hand. And he's just like, "Nothing." He puts it behind his back. "Nothing happened. Must have been from outside." Oh man. I'm surprised we even survived that. I mean, it's funny now, but it could have been bad. It could have been a worse outcome. That isn't the worst plumbing story that I have. The one that probably got to me the most was we used to do the plumbing for a college/hospital in the Chicago area. And our job was to do the plumbing for all like the dorm rooms and the, off-campus housing and stuff like that. One day I got called out to basically just unclog a toilet. And you don't know what's going to happen. You go there, maybe you just plunge it in and it opens up. Maybe you got to take the whole toilet off, whatever. So I got my tools and everything. I go up there and I'm like, this doesn't look like a normal job for me. There's police tape all around and there's cops all around. And they're like, "Are you the plumber?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, come on right this way." And they bring me to the bathroom and there's blood all over the bathroom and it's a crime scene. There was a murder taking place there. And so I'm like, okay, well, it doesn't seem like the toilet is such a high priority if there was a murder here. And they're like, no, you don't understand. You got to get the evidence out of the toilet. You care to elaborate on that a little bit so I know what I'm fishing around for in there? Okay, well, turns out some lady tried to give herself an abortion and flushed the fetus down the toilet, and it stopped up the toilet, and they needed to get the evidence so that they could charge her with the murder of the little child. That was traumatic, to say the least. Well, guys, if you're still watching, you must have liked the video. And if you did, give it a like. Now, if you want to see more like this, subscribe and click the bell. If you got some extra time on your hands, why not watch another one? You can choose one from the Stories of My Life playlist, which will appear here after I disappear. Or you could watch the next one in the series, which will also appear here. See you in the next one.